We move to part three, putting it all together. This is the topic for tomorrow's class. We'll engage in exercises and conversation aimed at addressing and illuminating these questions. But let's go back and give a little overview. What have we been up to? Okay, here's our premise. The premise is that effective strategies have to deal with three questions. And this is, by talking about a strategy here, I'm talking about the overarching strategy that's going to guide the firm in terms of its activities over a period of time. So at a high level, your effective strategy is going to address questions about how you create value, how you capture it, and how you regenerate it over time. The answer to the questions then is to create value. You have to understand things about how technology evolves, how market demand is going to change over time, and how, when, and which factors determine how technological choices are made. If we think through the sets of actions that we addressed in class, and I'll return to this a little bit later, but we think about the first 3 weeks. We have different models of evolution. You have different stories about how it's going to unfold. And we have, for example, in the variation, selection, retention models, notions of a dominant design arising, and that choice being made by probably the lower quality decision makers, users of a technology, as opposed to the sophisticated ones. We have in architectural notions of Henderson and Clark, notions that modularity is a trend over time, and who's going to win in the face of technological change depends on the nature of change and how it influences how products are assembled and the relationships between the architecture, the logical that links the parts, and specific elements of the parts themselves. So different approaches to answer questions about how, which, and when are decisions made. To capture value, we argue you have to understand things that influence the innovator's ability to capture profits, i.e., what's scarce, is it rare, and depending on your answers to those questions, will answer how fast you have to move, for example. We introduced here notions of the business model so you can understand what it is the company does to add value, because the value add process should focus on things that allow the innovator to capture profit. Where to locate your product in the value chain, again, a critical question, because depending on which position you offer, you may be in a more powerful or less powerful bargaining position vis-a-vis your customers and suppliers. How do you defend your competitive and technological position? We didn't really address this one at length. That one is more about how do you play the game, how do you defend yourself in a marketplace, as opposed to the selection of a strategy itself. But the questions concerning this have to do with the practices that you engage in. Think about how Brad Pello chose to conduct his life, how to run his businesses. That gives you some important information about how to defend and how to build advantage. Intellectual property itself, important question. We need to understand how to lever that, and I think the takeaway from the introductions that we were provided this week was quite simply that in looking at intellectual property, you listen to Lamar, and what you know is that, simply put, intellectual property is a more complex play than most people believe it to be. We are then move into a questions having to do with, sorry, I have to get back to my screen, to how do you sustain advantage? This question concerns how our technology is likely to evolve and where strategic investments must be made. If you're going to make them in the future, you got to figure out, what got me there in the first place, what I have to do over time to do it again. So understanding where it came from gives you some information about where it's going and what to watch out for. How to select strategies. Again, we didn't talk too much about selection of strategies, but we talked about families of strategies that are important. Platform strategies are an example of that. One really important question of sustaining advantage is, how do you manage technologists? Now, it turns out there's a lot of literature out there, and we actually have an expert in the school, Abby Griffin. She's fabulous at this particular question. In talking to her, she can answer a lot of your questions and provide a lot of insight about this. I cannot. That part of product development and the management of product development is not my expertise. However, it's a crucial question, and one that you pick up through experience in working within your organization and seeing how technologists work, how the scientists work, how development comes along, what is important to make sure that they prosper and succeed. Um, You need to be able to anticipate changes in the marketplace, respond in a timely manner. Again, the evolution is unfolding here, but also an assessment of competitive conditions will tell you who you have to worry about. Knowing who's in the marketplace, who's doing what, engaging in competitive intelligence tells you who to watch out for. It's a simple question, a simple thing to do, but crucially important. And again, knowing what not to do is crucial. Knowing what not to do reflects some awareness of the marketplace and the conditions that you're working under and what your future needs to be looking like. In order to talk about how they're going to evolve and where strategic must be made if you're going to stay in the game, this broader question was informed by all three parts. Look at Tech Strategy 1, 2, and 3. Henderson and Clark, VSR, tell us things about and give us a reasonable overview of how technology evolves and changes and what to pay attention to, how to select strategies, a skill, as I said. We practice that by talking about our tech updates and our cases. So we started on this, but this is a journey that you're going to be on throughout your careers. We can't complete it, but I want to, in this class, give you tools in the form of questions that you can ask that will guide you to deriving better answers. Anticipating change in the market. Think of the VSR models. Think of the various things that we talked about. Think of the discussions we've had around various strategic approaches and the use of alliance in the marketplace. Is that you start to think about how to approach the marketplace, what's going to happen over time, and where you're going to be. And again, knowing what not to do is so critical. Making the right step and avoiding missteps are two different things that you just have to pay attention to. How to select strategies. We got multiple answers. We provided some. TEAS tells you, provides good answers to the make or buy. Quack provides you some good insights into the relationship between intellectual property and positioning or leverage strategy and how to do that. Readings on platforms and inform a variety of questions. And of course, as you know from long experience, I know everything, so you should just always pay attention to my lectures. And anticipating change in the marketplace. Here we know that the way in which you live life and that life is always better off if you have the help of your friends. Alliances, we've had a conversation about the ethics of alliance, and they can be used aggressively, but in their best frame, they should allow you to build a framework of friends, people whom you work with in the marketplace, you cooperate with, and you're able to therefore guide your future and be more secure in it. So with strategic alliance, the fundamental question, is it the right tool? If it is, structure it correctly. Then think about how to manage them. Brad Pello was just masterful. He gave us some wonderful insight into what's happening in the marketplace and how to respond to it. Options thinking and scenario thinking, today's topic, give you some insight in how to go about crafting a strategy. And knowing what not to do. Boy, oh boy. That's a tough one. It comes, again, this is something that you learn from logic, from reading a lot, getting to know your field and your industry in depth. Some insight can be gained by looking over the tech presentations. You got data there that you know about a particular product and industry. You look at it and you say, oh, look at everything that's going to happen. Then you have to ask yourself, is that really going to work out that way? What's happening here? So you can question. Another way of questioning is saying that, well, everybody says you have to watch out for disruptive technology. Well, I presented a critique that says, you got to be really careful about the conclusion of whether or not it's a disruptive technology. And the questions that I provide there allow you to categorize and make more informed decisions about how to respond to a technology. Instead of screaming, the sky is falling, you can look at this and reply in much greater depth. Now, the final recommendation here for me is that your guesses are better than mine. In class, I'm going to illustrate why, but the high-level answer to that is that I'm a freaking professor. I'm sitting here in front of you. I don't deal with this stuff day to day. I'm too far away. But what I can, from my perspective as a professor, provide with you some insights, some learning that I've obtained about technology and how it unfolds by reading the literature, by following it over years, and in my case, far too long. I don't want to admit to my age, so I won't do that now. But in doing so, it means that you are on the front line. You're always going to be better informed than I am. My goal in this class is to give you the tools to shape questions that you can use to guide your future. Tomorrow night's class, we will address those questions at greater length. I thank you for your interest and support and the great fun that we've had in class in learning about technology and strategy. So many thanks.